N'Keal Harry was an absolute steal at 32. What are you guys talking about? Forget Tom Brady's passing numbers. He's the GOAT because he was the best punter in the NFL. I take Johnny Hekker over Patrick Mahomes to be my quarterback any day.
Welcome to the No Punt Intended Sportscast with your host, Parody07.
Welcome back to the No Pun Intended Sportscast. I'm your host, Guy, with, as always, the dogs. Or dare I say, the clowns, considering the time of year it is and the tomfoolery that has happened prior to me hitting the record button.
No comment.
Yeah, right. So obviously a lot has happened this week. Today is Tuesday, and we're recording just after the trade deadline, so we're going to take a few minutes to talk about that. Some injuries, and obviously the things about our teams that went a little differently this week. You know, like the Chiefs didn't win, and the Panthers did, and New England lost in Miami. So maybe not all things are different for all of our teams, but nonetheless, I figured instead of going through on an unscripted improv type, me rambling that nobody listens to, how about we do Cap or Fact? It's been a little while since we've done Cap or Fact, so I'm going to start grilling my dogs here, and hopefully they come out well done. So let's go ahead and start with the Stop the Cap versus the That's a Fact soundboard here. And first question goes to LB. LB, Bears fans should want Tyson Bagent to start for the rest of the season. Cap or Fact?
Rest of the season? I'm going to go, as much as I want to say Fact, I'm going to go Cap only because they're going to want Justin Fields to get healthy and be that dynamic player, which he can be. I think, for the rest of the season, I don't think they're willing to move on from Fields. And I think if they were to do that, then they're not going to get as much, in return once they inevitably move on from him. So from that standpoint, I would say they're going to want him to play. But I still think Tyson is the better NFL quarterback skill set wise from the pocket. I think he does things that Justin Fields can't. I think Justin Fields does things that Tyson can't. There's cons and positives with both, but the rest of the season, that's too much for me to fight off. But again, we'll see. You never know. I mean, the guys look good. 2 games he's played. So stranger things have happened. We'll see.
All right. So according to LB, should Tyson Bagent start his sweetheart? Should he start the rest of the season? He says,
Stop the cap.
Stop the cap. He says, you got to let Fields play a little bit. You spent a lot of capital to get that guy. Go ahead and let's see him play a little bit once he gets healthy. I hear you. Mr. Hound.
Yeah.
Are the Bengals back in town, my guy?
I would say yes, the Bengals are back. That is a fact. Mainly because I think the reason they weren't back to start with was mainly because of injuries. Basically, Joe Burrow just was not playing well. I think most people agree. That was kind of the main thing they were lacking. And now that he's playing better, you've solved your biggest issue. So, yeah, no, I think they are back now. By back, what does that mean? I think they're a playoff team pretty easily, but I don't know if they'll win their division because the Ravens are pretty good, and that's just a hard division to start with.
Sure.
So, and they still got to play the Bills this upcoming week, so that'll be a fun game.
Yeah.
The biggest issue for them for winning their division is mainly because they've only lost to the Browns and the Ravens. That was their first 2 losses. So starting 0-2 in your division is pretty tough. So I don't know if they'll win their division, but they'll definitely be in the playoff conversation. And once you make it to the playoffs, anything can happen.
Absolutely. So according to our illustrious Hound,
That's the fact, Jack.
the Bengals are back in town, baby. So love to see it. Joe Cool is back on the streets.
Yeah.
Back to LB, I'm going to kick it back to you. Should 49ers fans be worried about a 3-loss streak?
Nah, that's cap. It's a tough season, man. It's 17 games. You're going to have ups and downs. I think the 49ers are going to come back on top. I think they'll turn this ship around, especially as of today. They just signed Chase Young, another defensive monster. So I think their pass rush is going to be even better. I think their defense is just going to continue to reload. It's definitely some adversity, but I think they're built to withstand it, weather the storm, come out better on the other side. So I think they'll get it figured out.
I hear you. Yeah, I agree. I'm not ready to write this team off yet. I think it's good that they've gone through adversity at this time of the season and not later in the season where they could be coming into the playoffs a little bit more battered and bruised than what they were, how they were rolling prior to. So according to LB, should the 49ers fans be worried about their team?
Stop the cap.
Stop the cap. Y'all still really good. So just hang on for a minute. The ride might be going over a couple speed bumps, but it should get better here. There is light on the other side of the tunnel. I promise.
Now,
49ers
here's
fans.
what my nitpick opinion about that is I think that the 49 you shouldn't worry about your team if you're a 49ers fan, because the 49ers have the most talented roster. Should you be worried about Brock Purdy? Maybe. Not full on, obviously. But the fact that in the first 5 games where they won every game, he had no interceptions, and then in the last 3 games, he's had 5.
Oof.
Should be worrying.
Yeah.
Especially considering the fact that he had not lost a single game as a healthy quarterback up until these last 3 weeks. So he hasn't really had any opportunity to prove his clutch factor until these last 3 weeks. And that might be worrying.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows? Again, I think the 49ers as a whole are a good team anyways, so you shouldn't have to worry about a clutch factor as much. But, that's a concern.
I hear you. So even though I didn't really present the question, I'll put it this way. According to Hound, should you be worried as a 49ers fan about your quarterback?
That's the fact, Jack.
You would like to see him come through in a close game. I hear it. I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, do either you guys have a question for me? I mean, I don't want to, take over the show. It's not like it's my show or anything, but
no, I do. Okay, here we go.
Yes, sir.
We all know what happened. Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles, perhaps the most heartbreaking injury of the year so far.
I agree.
Minnesota traded for a quarterback, Josh Dobbs. He seems to have done okay with the Cardinals. It's not a great team, but I don't know if most people would blame the quarterback fully on that.
Right.
So, is it over for Minnesota?
I hate to say it, but I think it is, man. I picked the Vikings to be my Super Bowl team facing the Bills. I thought Vikings-Bills was going to be the scripted Super Bowl this year, but I think Vikings fans are going to realize how important Kirk Cousins is to this team. And I also think that Josh Dobbs, it's not a knock on him. It isn't at all. But he's coming from one system to a completely different system. And it's going to take a few weeks for him to get acclimated and to really start playing with some gusto. Getting Justin Jefferson back could really help. And Jordan Addison has played really well. Cam Akers, who they got, has played well as well. But I don't see Josh Dobbs pulling a Case Keenum type season out of, I just don't see it happening. Kevin O'Connell is great, but even Kirk Cousins, who is a really good quarterback and has established himself as a good quarterback, took some time to get used to that offense. And I'm not expecting Josh Dobbs to pick it up right away. I'm sure they will win plenty of games and they may even be a playoff team, maybe, but it'll be like a 9-8 type situation, and I don't see them going very far. So Is the season over? I think, unfortunately,
That's the fact, Jack.
it's pretty over. I mean,
Now,
there's not enough wiggle room in this NFC right now for them to be able to make a run, I think.
now, I mean, maybe it's just me, but was any part of you surprised that the Vikings actually traded for a quarterback?
No.
Because I'm a little surprised. Because mainly because I mean, everyone was thinking before the last couple games that they're going to trade Kirk Cousins, right? And you have Justin Jefferson out for you a while. And if I was the Vikings, it's like, that this team's not going to be a Super Bowl team, especially even if you trade for a quarterback. So I don't understand the purpose. And also the main reason is because their backup quarterback is a rookie who they drafted in the 5th round. Well, not a high round. It's a rookie. You drafted him. You might want to see what he's like. So I'm a little surprised that they did. Yeah, it's a good team, but there's always seemed to be conversations of them preparing for the future already. And this seems like a very much win now type of move. So
no,
I don't know.
I mean, they didn't give up much. I think it was a 6th round pick, and they got a 7th back. So it's not like they gave up a bunch, and it's not like DAWGS was paid a bunch of money either. So it's not a huge investment. And to me, it's just, look, Josh Dobbs is played pretty decent, all things considering, with the offensive line that he has and the skill position players, if you want to call them that they have on that team.
Yeah.
I really think that this was an opportunity for them to salvage the season, and it's entirely possible that Dobbs could pull a Case Keenum type of rest of the season, but I just don't see it happening just with how late in the season it is. It's one thing for it to happen prior to the season. I think when Case Keenum did it, it was when Teddy Bridgewater was their quarterback and he got hurt in training camp, and they had all season for Case Keenum to get comfortable. So we're 8 games in. Vikings are 4-4. It's not like they're 5-3 or 6-2 or something like that, where they have a little bit of wiggle room, and the Lions are rolling, so they're not winning the division. So
and they still have to play the Lions twice.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't see them doing anything other than maybe snagging a wild card spot. But there's some good teams in the NFC East and some teams kind of up and coming in the NFC West. Just trying to remember which ones were which. So it's going to be tough. 9-8 is, I think, going to be the absolute minimum you need to get in. It might be even higher than that. So we'll have to see what's up with that. But no, I don't see the Vikings they're definitely not going to get better because of Kirk Cousins being hurt. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. And they were already on the back burner. But I do appreciate the way that Brian Flores has got that defense back into, middling territory versus being absolute dog water. So I appreciate that, but they need a little bit more than that for that team to go places that they want to go. And usually you need a really good quarterback for that to happen. And I just don't see Dobbs and McConnell or whatever the name of the head coach is, getting that chemistry early enough on for it to work out for them. So that's a really long-winded answer, but I like the Vikings, so I like talking about them. So appreciate the question.
I've got one right quick for you.
Yeah. Hit me up.
All right, so cap or fact, Justin Herbert could be in the MVP conversation after his performance against the Chicago Bears.
Should be or could be?
Should be. And I'll give you his stats just to give you some context.
Yeah, I didn't see the stats.
He went 31 of 40, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns, with a rating of 122.7. And the Chargers won very convincingly 30-13.
That's the fact, Jack.
he should have been an MVP conversation 3 weeks ago, in my opinion. So if he's not already in the conversation or not in the conversation because of the record of his team, well, I tell you what, it's that head coach and that defensive, whatever you want to call that, coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball, whatever it is. It's akin to putting defensive coordinators in charge of offensive play calling, which I wouldn't know anything about that as a Patriots fan, you know. So I have no qualms at all with Mr. Herbert being in the MVP conversation, and I think he's playing. He's top three as far as how well he's playing. He's top three in the league at his position for sure. I don't, most people would say Tua, and obviously Mahomes probably your top three. But after Mahomes' performance last night or the night before, excuse me, and Tua, I think benefiting from benefiting from
most talented pass catchers in the league.
And honestly, I think the person who will eventually win Coach of the Year in Mike McDaniel. So I think he's benefiting from a lot of good things happening around him. And Herbert, despite the chaos around him, is still putting up numbers. So, when Kirk Cousins does that sort of stuff, it's always his fault. But when Justin Herbert does it, all he gets is MVP snubs. So what type of world are we living in? Seriously. But yeah, for sure. That's
the fact, Jack.
Yeah, I've got Justin Herbert as my MVP right now. If it was up to me, he would have my vote for sure. And with that, I think we've kind of covered all the big storylines coming into, I think this is week 9 now. And we'll obviously do predictions and dogs of the week later. But right now, we skipped this portion last week to kind of do something a little different. So we kind of missed the good, bad, and the coaching and some of the segments that kind of get inserted in that. So and we have some juicy stuff to talk about. We've got some draft pick matchups with LB. We've got a loss, so we don't usually get to hear Hound complain that much about things that actually mattered in the outcome of the game, but today we do. And then I'm going to do a little video essay for you people that don't understand how quarterbacking and defenses work. So I'm tired of hearing about Mac Jones's quote unquote worst throw of the season, as some of the analysts on CBS and NFL Network put it. I need to learn you all something. So we'll get through that.
He's made many worse throws before.
I had to say he has. That one against the Raiders a couple weeks ago was absolutely egregious. It about made me throw up. It was so bad. But no, we'll talk about it when we get to it. But LB, the floor is yours. The soapbox is not about bad things this week, man. I want to hear it. Let me hear the positivity about a 1-16. Let me hear it.
Let's go. First win of the season, fellas. And my goodness, does it feel nice to win. That I thought was something I wasn't gonna experience this year. I thought there was a possibility that we go 0-17, which would be the first team ever to go 0-17 because of the expansion game.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So that would have been a terrible statistic to be the first at. So
and you wouldn't have even gotten a first round pick out of it. That's
what I'm saying. That we would have done nothing but help the Bears. So yeah, shout out to Bryce Young, man. He outdueled CJ Stroud. And out of this whole, I guess now we've gone on episode like 18, coming up on 20 soon. So this whole time I've tried to be fair and consistent, call balls and strikes between what my personal opinions are versus what actually is, and try to account for my biases and stuff like that. And of course, now that Bryce Young is on the Panthers, I'm all in on him, despite me not wanting them to draft him. I would love for him to have success. I don't want anyone to have a poor career just because it's not the person I would have picked. A lot of people in Carolina down here have been writing Bryce Young off and putting all of the blame on him, similar to Mac Jones. You know, they're ready to go ahead and move on. But this guy has done nothing but improve week in and week out, in my opinion. He's making continued progress, and he looks like an NFL quarterback from the pocket. He's making great throws. He's doing the little details right, despite not having much help around him, with the exception of Adam Thielen and Chuba. DJ Chark has come on a little bit, and same with Jonathan Mingo, our second-round pick at wide receiver. That was nice to see them get more involved this week. But yeah, man, we got the first win. We got the monkey off our back, and of course, it came at the perfect time. Houston Texans, CJ Stroud versus Bryce Young in the Queen City. The matchup that was not really hyped up as much as I thought in the media. I thought it would have been a little more, anticipation, but I guess that's what you get when you're 0-6. There's not much hype around your squad.
Fair.
But no, the good, obviously the first win. Our defense only gave up 13 points, which was huge because Stroud and that offense has been putting up points. They've been looking really, really good, and our defense basically held them to, a touchdown and 2 field goals. So if you do that, my goodness, this team could get on a little mini run here. I'm not going to put the cart before the horse, but looking ahead at our schedule, it's certainly possible. Frankie Louvu had a great game. Brian Burns, as well as Derek Brown did. Those seem to be the consistent players on defense, and they're certainly flying around making plays all over the field. Particularly Frankie Louvu. He had 2 pass deflections at critical times in the game. One in the end zone, which was super great. Preventing those scoring opportunities from happening. So that was awesome. Chuba ran the ball when he needed to. Our rushing attack as a whole in the day was terrible, but he made some big time plays when he needed to. Get a big third down conversion late on our game winning drive. Another good thing is we found a way to win a game. It was ugly. We gave up 6 sacks. Bryce was hit 10 times. We were outmatched yards wise on offense. Houston scored or had more total yards of offense. But nonetheless, we found a way to win. And again, it was really a complete team win. I think our special teams did well despite our kicker missing an extra point. There's some hidden yardage in there. Our kick returns, we had 3 on the day with a 52-yard long return. So again, setting up that field position can lead to points quick. Setting your offense up. And then our punter, he had 4 averaging 50 yards with a long of 63. So again, being able to flip the field and give your defense. Yeah, exactly. And again, that's the defense and the special teams, in my opinion, go hand in hand. That's why I think our defense only gave up 13 points, because Johnny Hekker had a great day, averaged 50-yard bombs with a long of 63. You're able to get your defense in a good position to get off the field and stay rested. And that's what, I've been preaching this whole year is, you got to play complementary football in the NFL to win. When you don't have, people who can just take over a game like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, like a Jalen Hurts, you got to have to basically have a collaborative team effort because, the margin of error in this league is so small. Some of the bad, like I said, we go up 6 sacks. Our O-line is looking very, very rough despite the offseason moves last year to try to beef that up. Our left tackle, Ike Akwamu, who was a first-round pick last year, is struggling still at left tackle. Again, I can't explain that. I don't know why that is. Coming out of college, he was definitely considered a better run blocker, more of like a road grader bulldozer type, moving bodies. But again, he struggled, so maybe they need to move him inside, switch it up a little bit. Now that we're getting some guys back off of IR, maybe stick someone else at left tackle, maybe move him to left guard, even right guard, who knows. But again, whatever they're doing is not working. 6 sacks, 10 QB hits is not sustainable, let alone for Bryce Young, who's 5'10", 190 pounds on a good day. Those hits are going to stack up, so that's obviously bad. Our run game was terrible. We had 24 rushes for 44 yards.
Oof.
On the day. Horrible. Miles Sanders, our free agent pickup this year, had 2 carries for 0 yards. So that continues to be a seemingly big swing and a miss, which would be okay, except we paid him $25 million. So that's never good.
No.
And then, interestingly enough, I feel like I say this every week, depending on what team I watch, if it's not Carolina, but the field turf is garbage, man. We have got to get rid of that turf. I hate it. It doesn't look good. And it's just a matter of time until someone gets hurt because guys are slipping and sliding everywhere. And, I mean, shoot, it could have cost us the game because Bryce Young had a scramble on third and 2. Wasn't even a long run, 3rd and 2. And he scrambled, he slipped and had to roll over to get the first down because the footing was so bad. And again, that's how these non-contact injuries happen, whether it's ankles, whether it's Achilles, ACLs, whatever it might be. A lot of time it's the playing surface. So again, I think it's time to go. Get rid of the turf. Again, it's just, I don't understand it from a front office standpoint, why you would not want to invest in your squad. But again, other than the nitpicky details, which I'm trying to be fair. Obviously, I'm not having some crazy imaginations and that Carolina's going to go on a run and we're going to go, 11-6 and make the playoffs. I don't think that's the case. I'm trying to be realistic. We won 1 game, super happy about it. And again, because we don't have a first round pick, there's no reason to tank because it's not going to help us. So I think we need to continue to build on these wins. Hopefully we can get another one moving forward. But yeah, man, biggest takeaway, we got to win. And you can never complain about a win. It was ugly. It didn't look good, but a win is a win. And that is the only stat that matters, is that win column. And we are finally in it. So shout out to the Panthers for winning their first game.
Heck yeah. And a little point on the coaching. I'd like to ask what you thought about the offensive coordinator actually taking over the offensive play calling and what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I think it was kind of clunky to begin the game. There wasn't many things that stood out to me other than we were completing a couple more balls down the field. We're being a little bit more aggressive on these intermediate throws. Bryce did have his longest completion of the year at 40 yards, so that was good. But the biggest one was our 15-play, 86-yard game-winning drive. That's when that, I think, play calling really shined when we needed it to the most. And I think Thomas Brown did exactly what he needed to do, put our guys in a position to win, and we executed. And, we had a fourth quarter comeback at home or away, doesn't matter, since 2018. It's been a while since we had a fourth quarter comeback, and he called up the series just like he needed to, and we kicked a game-winning field goal as time expired. So that's certainly good to get a win as your first time calling the plays for the Panthers. So obviously he's not going anywhere in terms of play calling responsibilities. And again, I'm just looking forward to how this offense can evolve a little bit despite some of our setbacks like the sacks and O-line issue. We have to be creative and work around that. And we're just going to use our personnel better. There's a couple of times where I thought we didn't use the personnel to the best of our ability. We had our third string running back in on a 3rd and 1. He's like 5'10", 205 pounds. We should have had Chuba, in my opinion. He's the bigger back. So just, little details like that. But again, who knows? Maybe Chuba was dealing with, something on the sideline. So there's plenty of reasons why people aren't in the game or are in the game. But again, I think you got to minimize those situations and you have to learn how to maximize them at different points of the game to win. Because like I said, the margin of error is just so thin in this league.
Yeah, for sure. Do we have an LV's QB breakdown here of Mr. Young a little bit more in depth, or you've really kind of talked about it pretty in depth already, but if you are welcome to it if you want to.
Lord, nice right, ice cream.
What's the difference really, other than Bailey Zappi looks a little better?
The end zone, touchdown. Newton throws, end zone, touchdown, Robbie Anderson.
And strong in the pocket, goes through his progressions, and he finds the open man time and time again.
Yeah, I'll keep it somewhat short because, again, the only thing that's really different in this game was obviously we got to win.
Sure.
And Bryce has continued to make strides and he's continued to progress. I'll just give you some of his stats from the game. He went 22 of 31 with 235 yards passing and a touchdown with a QBR 42.2, so not great, but a rating of 103.6. And again, the QBR and the ratings, they're kind of subjective. CJ Stroud had a rating of 81.9, but he threw for 16 of 24, 140 yards. So, I mean, who had a better day? Bryce.
Right.
I mean, he outdueled him. They got the win, most importantly. So I don't read too much into those stats. But no, he made plays when he needed to, navigated the pocket. He pushed the ball downfield. Our guys made plays, and yards after the catch was a big takeaway from Chark and Thielen and those guys at Mingo on the long completion of 40 yards. So again, he's doing what he needs to do. He just needs more help, and that's just going to be, I think, the key for him taking his next step and becoming an elite guy. I think the skill set is there. We're going to have to help him. We're going to have to protect him. The 6 sacks is not sustainable. But other than that, no, he did well. The NFL Next Gen stat chart, which we can overlay for the people watching, will like the spreadsheet on it is we was throwing the ball over the yard, taking shots downfield. We had 2 completions over 20 yards, 1 near in the 30. So we're getting those chunk plays now. He had a great touchdown pass to Tommy Trimble, the tight end in the red zone, put a nice touch on the corner route. So that was awesome, man. So the talent's there, the skill set's there. We just have to maximize it, and again, we're going to have to go all in terms of offensive weapons to get the most out of this investment, because it is a hefty investment that Carolina has made. And if it works out, great. Obviously, I hope it does. But I don't think we'll truly know that until we get him some pieces other than just a 33-year-old Adam Thielen in second round rookie draft receiver. So we'll see. But no, I'm super happy, super pleased, and he's 1-0 in the series versus CJ Stroud. So that's obviously great.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I want to mention one other play. There was a play where, and it might have been his 44-yard completion, if I'm not mistaken, where he had people at his feet, almost had him down, and he was able to keep his balance, spin out of it, make a throw downfield at Adam Thielen, who made a spectacular catch. And I'm curious, is that kind of the skill set that made that could potentially make this investment into Bryce Young worth it?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we've continued to see week in and week out is when things get off schedule, he's still looking to throw the ball downfield. He doesn't drop his eyes. He's still a pass-first guy, in my opinion, which is great. I think a lot of times when you get these big plays in the NFL, it's when you're off script and, you have guys breaking open late because, it's super hard to cover a guy for 4 or 5 seconds in the NFL when they're running around over the field. So I think that's part of the intrigue of Bryce Young as the draft prospect and now quarterback. Just being able to stay calm and make something out of nothing, create. He's not the fastest guy, he's not the most athletic guy, but if you can get rid of the ball and get it to your skill positions and your weapons, you're going to have success. I don't care who you are. So I think that's one of the many things he does well, is just navigating the pocket, buying just enough time, and then getting rid of the football. Don't hold it. I think he did that a little bit too much earlier this year. And again, that's just, I think, learning the speed of the NFL.
Yeah.
And how fast these guys play. Obviously, you can get away with more at Alabama when you're playing SEC teams or non-SEC teams and when you're playing in the National Football League. So I think he's, made strides in that. And that's just something that teams are going to have to take into account as he continues to progress and grow as a starter in the NFL.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that, because it was an absolute pleasure to watch the highlights. I tell you, Bryce looked good. I thought he looked good. There was even he made a throw. It was opposite hash, and he threw an out route to the opposite side of the field. on a line, and the receiver dropped it, but he put it right on his hands. Like it's a type of throw that's an NFL throw that you got to be able to make. And it didn't look like it was difficult for him to make it. You know, it was like it was his second or third read, if I'm not mistaken, and he made an accurate throw, and I think it was to Tremble, if I'm not mistaken. If it wasn't, it might have been to Mingo or something like that. And it just, the ball hit the receiver on the hands. It was tight coverage, but it was a great throw, only where the receiver could grab it. It was a good play, and it didn't work out for him. And that's the difference between having somebody like a DeAndre Hopkins or Tyreek Hill or somebody like that on your team that can make that catch more times than not to help keep your offense on schedule. So that's good stuff. We're not used to hearing LB talk so positively and glowingly about his Carolina Panthers, and we're also not used to hearing you have complaints about your Kansas City Chiefs. So could you do this the honor of explaining to us what in the world happened on 4:15 on Sunday?
Yeah, so here's what happened. Because if you look at the score, 24-9, it looks bad. And you know why it looked bad? Because it was bad. But it was bad for a very specific reason. Okay. The whole team didn't play bad. It was bad for one reason and one reason only: turnovers. We had 5 turnovers in that game, and we only got 1 on defense. So a -4 turnover differential, you're never going to win those. This is the first time the Chiefs defense has allowed more than 21 points in a game. They allowed 24. But I think our defense did great in this game. Because I'll give you the stats, okay? The Chiefs had sacked Russell Wilson 6 times, so that's good.
Yeah.
We only allowed 114 passing yards again with Russell Wilson. So if you look at Russell Wilson's stats, he has had his 2 fewest passing yards in a game this season against the Chiefs. Both times. They're like we've done great there. And in total, we allowed less than 300 yards on offense, right? That's really good. You know, that's very good. So how did we end up allowing 24 points? Well, it's because of the turnovers, and we put our defense in a bad spot. Here is where the Russell Wilson, Sean Payton amazing offense started on the field when they on all those scoring drives, okay? Because they had 4 scoring drives. They got their first touchdown, they started on the Kansas City 39-yard line. Their second touchdown, they started on the 50. Okay. Third touchdown, they started on the Kansas City 10-yard line.
Oof.
And then their last field goal, they started on the Kansas City 20. And I think they actually lost yards on that possession. So
it's hard to win games that way.
Yeah, and every time they started in their own side of the field, they didn't score. Not a single time. So our defense did great. You know, I really think they did. The rush defense was having a little bit of difficulty here and there, but again, still did amazing. So I don't really blame them, especially since our best linebacker, Nick Bolton, is also injured. So Drew Tranquill's been taking up a lot of that slack, and he did great. Another great part of the game is Butker. He kicked 3 more field goals. He's still perfect on the season with 18 field goals attempted and made. And he had a 56-yard long field goal. So that was good. Anyways, let's get to the bad, because that's what everyone wants to hear about.
Yeah.
So the worst thing, the biggest bad for the Chiefs was the flu. So, you know, flu's not nice. People compare Mahomes to Michael Jordan a lot of times, but I guess where it stops is Mahomes is not like a sick Michael Jordan.
Fair enough.
He's just like a sick, normal person. So Patrick Mahomes apparently got the flu, and apparently it was a stomach flu Saturday, and that's the worst type of flu you get. So yeah, he was not all of sorts. You know, that's not a complete excuse. And in all honesty, he didn't have the worst game ever. Like, he still completed like 64% of his passes, 200 plus yards. Like, it wasn't like Mahomes numbers, but they were okay. It's not like he was like less than 50% completion percentage. But the other bad things I already mentioned was the turnovers. We had 2 interceptions, and one of those interceptions was basically Mahomes punting the football away. Like, there's this thing that Mahomes has been doing this year where if it's on third down, he'll just launch the ball 50 yards in the air. And he's like, okay. And like about half of his interceptions are probably those plays. And it's like, okay, well, I guess it's fine. But yeah, so that was one of them. But then we had 3 fumbles, and one of them was a muffed punt that's on the 10-yard line. So 5 turnovers, you're just never going to win a game with a -4 turnover difference. Like you're just never going to. So that's the bad. The other bad is all the wide receivers. Most of the wide receivers, I should say. Rashee Rice still did fine. He still had like 50 plus yards, and that's good for what he's been doing. He's fitting into his role nicely. And again, I'm going to pick on one more player again, and I picked on them the last time we did this. Sky Moore. Okay. Everyone thought he was going to be amazing. This year, he's going to be the wide receiver number 1 for us. He's been working with Mahomes, everything. He had 1 catch for 8 yards in this game on 3 targets. So Sky Moore has had a total of 168 receiving yards this season. And you know what? That's not even saying how bad it is, because in the last 5 games, Sky Moore has had 56 yards receiving. That's 11 yards per game in the last 5 games. That kind of shows you where the Chiefs are at with Sky Moore. I don't trust him, and I doubt anyone on that team does, which is sad because he was a 2nd-round draft pick. You'd think 2nd-rounders can at least get more than 11 yards per game. But, maybe not for Sky Moore. So, anyways, the receivers were not great. But that wasn't the only bad thing, because the coaching playmaking was not great in this game. We only ran Isaiah Pacheco 8 times in the entire game.
Yeah, my fantasy team noticed that.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? He ran 8 times and still averaged 5 yards per carry. They're like, no, we don't want that much Isaiah Pacheco, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, if it wasn't for the turnovers, we would have won this game. Like, that's it. Like, we had more yards per play, more total yards, more sacks. Like, we sacked them 6 times. They sacked us, I think, 3 times, which is actually a lot for our team. We had less penalties. Like, everything except turnovers, we would have won this game. So that's really what happened. It was a game of where we just turned over the football way too much, and you hope those things you can fix. So,
yeah, that seemed like it was a perfect storm type of situation for you guys. It's just everybody, outside of your defense, everybody on offense had an off day. And I think it shows how important Mahomes is to your squad. Your defense can only do so much for you. Especially in today's NFL. So I definitely hear you on all that. And it's one of those things where I feel a little bad, because you kind of want to see Mahomes, because he is fantastic. Like, nobody's questioning his greatness, right? And his toughness and all that. And he wants to play every snap and then the extra snaps after the game just to make sure that they win the game, And it's just it's tough to watch somebody who is such a competitor and loves the game so much, and it's just so fun to watch in general, just struggle just because of an ailment, and I'm sure they, drugged him up the best they could prior to, hopefully within standards. I don't think he was, on steroids or nothing, but I'm sure he got an IV and all the rest, like at halftime and probably before the game as well. And it's just, you can't put your team in a situation like that. And you don't have Chad Henne anymore, so it's not like you can just throw in your backup and win a game, So it's a tough loss. It's a tough loss, but you guys, and it kind of sets up like a game that you kind of overlook because of the team you're playing the next week, and you're all playing Miami. So it might have been one of those things where, especially if the play calling was less than ideal, it might have been one of those things where your team
you're trying to keep stuff off film.
Yeah, and on top, and you're trying to rest your guys a little bit the best you can, and all the rest. So if Mahomes, kept his offense off the field, I mean they should be rested up by next week. But that defense might be a little gassed, Maybe it's a big brain play. Maybe because the defense only had to cover 20 yards at a time, they didn't actually have to move around as much.
Yeah.
So that's a tough loss for you guys, but it's not like you're in a position that it's going to be. I think you guys still have the number 1 seed in the AFC. I don't think.
Yeah, the Miami game will decide who gets it.
Okay.
At least at this point in the season.
I hear you. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I think your record with Miami's the same. So that'll be the game of the week next week for sure. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. We're all going to be looking forward and probably watching that game.
Thank you for listening to the No Punt Intended Sportscast. Be sure to check out the Thinking Hound and to like, share, and subscribe.